I'm gonna start off at least bi-weekly. Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I think this is cool.
Thanks. Yeah, man. It's really been so cool. Honestly, I just had like one of the most awesome conversations with this director's assistant that I worked with on Loving, and she had been going through a lot of stuff. She basically we basically just like exchanged our war stories, you know, like just everything that we've gone through in the industry, and it ended up being more of like this venting thing. You know, we don't realize when we're ripping and running that we're kind of all we have to talk about this stuff, right?
That's true.
You know, so it was just it was cool. I didn't even expect this to be, you know, this portal of therapy for us, but you know, we both needed it apparently, right? So it was
absolutely. We do a lot of bonding on set for sure, and just in general doing this.
Right, exactly. Well, hey guys, my name is Trey Hill, and this is another episode of the new Filmosophy. And today we're going to be breaking down Jamesy Boy. And we actually have an awesome guest today. We have the fortune to be able to have the script supervisor for Jamesy Boy with us today, Miss Jane Burka. Hey, how's it going? And we actually got to, I met Jane when I was PAing on so many different sets in the Maryland area. I can't remember the exact one that we met. Was it Veep, House of Cards?
It must have been Veep, but it's been a lot. We've definitely worked on several different films, TV, could be a commercial. Like it kind of blends in together, but we have worked in and out on several projects.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, man. And it's, you know, she'll get into more details about what a script supervisor does if you guys don't know, but it's she always has the inside scoop. You know, the AD, they'll you'll hear all the departments say what is very wishful and what needs to happen, but you can go over to Jane and be like, how long is this going to take? We're like,
that's so true.
Yeah, man, you always had the inside scoop. But yeah, and then also, you know, I work with you as a PA, and now that I've directed my own projects and I've had a script supervisor on the ones that went the best.
Awesome. That you had the money for. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's just like, oh, night and day, especially in post. Like I have such a newfound respect since the last time we spoke about the position. But like I said, I want you to get more into it later on, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Good deal.
But so we have a couple of chores at the beginning. The first thing, since you're not here, I have to do it for you. I have the show board back here, and I'm gonna sign your name on it. Okay.
Okay.
And it's basically a place for when you're actually here, and you can put it. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to embody your spirit and write it as you would as if you were here. Right. All right.
We'll do it.
Cool. All right. And you make sure you do spell check for me.
Okay.
I haven't graduated grad school yet, so I haven't gotten the spelling class down yet.
I can't spell personally either. My secret.
Oh my gosh, man. Spell check is the best ever. All right. So I don't know where my eraser went. All right. So we'll do Jamesy Boy, and this is
Jamesy Boy. It is kind of weird how Jamesy Boy is written.
Right. Is the S before the E?
I don't know. I think no. I think you have it right. Jamesy, and Jane Burka. That's me.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. All right. If not, then I'll fix it in post. Like, no.
Yeah, no worries. That's what they always say on a film set.
All right, exactly. All right. Oh, man. All right, cool. So the next chore is you don't have to feel obligated to like there's a right or a wrong answer to this. What is your filmosophy?
Well, I mean, for me, I was an English major. I just feel like the story needs to be worth telling. I feel like I have a hard time when things aren't believable, but sometimes I have to step away from that because sometimes those little facts don't always matter. I mean, like I watched Florida Project recently. And there's some things that aren't realistic in that, but you have to, allow the movie to take you on a journey. So sometimes I get stuck with a little bit of story. I, as a script supervisor, was always looking at the script. I love, at Filmosophy, it's like I just feel like if you can move somebody or give them a little piece of something to leave with, maybe something to think about.
I like that. I like that a lot. And people are going to think we planned this. My last episode was actually the Florida Project with the associate producer on it, Danny Johnson, who
That's
was
awesome.
Yeah, man, she was actually director's assistant on the film Loving for Jeff Nichols when I was PAing on that out in Virginia.
It's cool.
Yeah, man, and we were just talking about that. So I love that you brought that up to tie it in. It's almost like we planned it. But no, I love that Filmosophy. I think that that's a common thread that I keep getting when I hear when I ask people that question as far as it meaning something, doing the craft, doing the story, and it having meaning, it being impactful, not just not doing it for just this whatever. It's easy when we're in the grind and we're just working on the next production. I don't care what title it is. Give me the call sheet. I'll be there in the morning.
Exactly. I'll show up on time.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to hear everybody talk about the importance of the depth behind the story at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So name a VHS that you either still own or maybe one that you can remember you used to pop in.
I mean, I would just have to say I love The Shining. I hate, I'm sorry, I know that's kind of hard, but I love horror. I love that movie. I love the images that you take away from it, and the fear. And it's like it's when you hear interviews with that actress, I forget her name, Shelley Duvall, I'm not sure, but the director kind of he harassed her on that set, and you can see her pain and her confusion, and it's like there's just so many things about that movie that I think are great. But so that would be my old VHS, I guess, that I would pull out and watch every once in a while.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm a big horror fan. I love escaping into those things, and with The Shining specifically, one is it's really gorgeous, even though it is a very dark subject. It's gorgeous, and man, that's just such a classic performance by Jack, it's awesome. And yeah, I see the distraught in her, the entire time. So I guess that was method acting, huh? She really was.
Wow. He was the directors can be really hard. He was really hard on her, and she hated it during it, but she thanked him later, and she said that's some of the best acting I've done.
Right. That's cool.
So
right?
Being a director is really hard. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, how much do you push your actor? How much do you allow them to bring it themselves? It's a balance, I guess.
Definitely. Cool. All right. And then can you name the last movie that you watched in a theater?
No, because I haven't been to the theater in a really long time. I hate to say it.
Yeah, no one
The last movie I watched was Florida Project, but I watched it here. And plus it's COVID, so there's no theaters, but I'm not a theater person necessarily.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, the times are different now anyway. I think the last movie I saw was like in December, maybe it was January, February. So yeah, it's times are changing,
Yeah, exactly.
But what, of course, the most impossible answer ever or question to answer, what is your favorite movie?
I don't have one. I cannot tell you. Yeah, I don't know. I hate to say it, but I can't pick a favorite.
I understand. I feel like even all of us who name it, when people ask, it's probably the last most impactful. You know, like the question is probably very subjective depending on the moment in time where you're at in your life and stuff. And it's like, you know, it's an impossible question to answer. You know, I just love hearing what people say.
I mean, I have to say, Moonlight was a movie that this it's really hard. It's a hard movie to watch as far as still how it changes the story and adds to the story. I think in Moonlight, it's a perfect movie to watch about when the camera's still and when it's moving, because there's a lot that's expressed through that. And that movie's beautiful. It's, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, man. I actually use a lot of their cinematography as I'm talking to my DP for our next short. You know, I use that in the Florida project, the anamorphic lens. Yeah, it's just it's gorgeous in the language, the visual language that they use is, you know, so vivid, and he uses every inch of the frame and the movements, and everything has a purpose. It's, you know,
right. Everything has a purpose.
Masterclass. Yeah, so great. Awesome. And that's it. So we did that. All right. So now I want to basically we can catch up a little bit. You know, I'm down here in Atlanta. I'm fully domesticated now. You know, we're sleep training right now, so you might hear my son.
That's awesome, Trey. That's so congratulations. That's super cool. Because I was gonna say probably the last movie I watched in a movie theater was a kids movie. You know, I have kids. So.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah. How many do you have?
I have 2, 16 and 14.
Yeah, boy, girl.
Boy and girl.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
What about you? Is your baby a boy or a girl?
He's a boy. 4 years old. Yeah, or 4 months old.
Congratulations. It's so awesome.
Yeah, man, it's so great. It's everything. It's what everyone says. It's tiring, you know, but it's super fulfilling, you know. It kind of reminds me. I was joking with my wife when we were a few weeks in. He was a few weeks old, and you know we were both just completely, you know, drained, not sleeping, tired, just crabby. And I was like, this reminds me of, you know how we say we have to get in set shape, like those first few weeks of production, like week 3, and everybody is just out of it, and we know that we have 2 months to go, and it's, you know, you're just like, you're getting up in the morning like, but it's that, but you're doing it for your child. You're not doing it for, you know, a bunch of millionaire producers and actors.
Right, exactly.
Right, you know. It's so awesome. I love it. But cool. Yeah, man. And honestly, what's really cool with Jamesy Boy, watching it, I feel like a lot of me saw myself in the journey, but this is honestly one of the first times me watching a movie and thinking about my son.
Cool.
Yeah. Now I see that parental protective gene. Hell no, that is not on my watch, right?
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But it's so cool, and I could imagine being a parent too, like just watching those traps, trying to navigate where's that whole, you know, freedom versus holding them down. You know, me and my wife, we were talking to somebody, and they're like, you know, we don't want to be helicopter parents, you know, and they were like, F that, you know, they're like, you got 18 years and they're in your, it's up to you. What you do for them, that's all they got, you know, in those 18 years. You
kind of do have to stay in today, because it's a little overwhelming being a parent. So like, and in this movie, you know, in Jamesy Boy, it's clearly he's in a struggle with his mom, and she's in a struggle.
Right. You know? Yeah. And he's 14 years old. I remember and I was an adult when I stopped blaming my parents for everything. I'll probably still do if it's convenient enough. Yeah. You get this you get this feeling of I shoulda, coulda, woulda, or if this and then that, and it's everybody else's fault, and that's just, you can't live like that. And I really appreciated his mother when they were sitting and talking, and he, she's trying to help him. She's trying to help him clean up, get right, get into a school, and he's barking at her about his dad and bringing up these horrible memories of her mistakes and everything. And she says, well, I'm too busy living and trying to make it out of this and, keep us afloat. So I don't have time to dwell on like what I'm not doing or our mistakes. And I think that you don't, Jamesy Boy, and a lot of us when we're young and we're trying to figure stuff out, you don't realize that you're just so harsh on your parents. You can be so harsh because you're emotional and you haven't figured all this stuff out, and you don't see that that's all that matters, and that's all you really have.
No, I know. And I mean, the thing about Jamesy Boy is the whole meaning. I mean, I know we're not at the end, but it's like at the beginning of the movie, he's doing that interview to try and go back to school. And his mom's trying to say to them in that scene, just because this is all written down about my kid and he's done this, that, and the other, that doesn't mean that's who he is. What we do and what mistakes we make does not define us. And I think she's trying to bring that little seed to him at that point. He doesn't realize, he does get to it. That's his character arc. He does get to it at the end of the movie. I mean, the first, like getting into the first line of the whole movie is, it's funny because you're talking about his attitude. Let me find it.
Was it when the abusive black police officer was like...
Yeah, when he's getting... So we open up on the jail, right? He's coming into the jail, right?
And I'm sorry, guys, if the signal's going in and out a little bit here and there, but I'll keep...
we're having a little bit of a... Hold on, I gotta find this line though. It's pissing me off. Wait a minute.
All right, you're good. Is it what the prisoner with...
Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, so we open in the jail, right? We've gone back in time, basically. And the first line that this jailer warden says to him, you're gonna pick a fight even before you get off the bus.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Right? Because that introduces us a little bit of James's attitude.
Exactly. He's trapped.
And yeah,
his whole mindset, I mean, it's ego, it's pride. It's that young boy's pride. And we see that, again, what's really interesting when I was watching it with my wife, who's a therapist, I know the guests are going to be so tired of me saying that. I bring it up like every episode, but I love her insight on things coming from this place, particularly with Florida Project and with Jamesy Boy, because these are her clients all the time. What I thought was crazy with him was, and what she was saying was that he is so privileged, and I just thought that was so interesting that she said that. And she's like, the whole thing with a lot of these guys, they're just like F it. The whole reason they come up with this whole F it attitude is because it's very similar to what Ving Rhames was trying to tell him at the end, where it's just life is on the line all day. We all have to be present in life and make decisions. We all have to be here. We none of us have time to sulk, and we all have to pay for the bad decisions that we make in our life. But when you're caught up and your ego is getting a hold of you, and you don't have a male figure as a man, if you don't have a male figure to emulate, and you can see with Rock and with Ving Rhames that he's looking for a father figure so desperately, right? But he gravitates to these people to rock specifically, and he gravitates to this lifestyle, randomly meeting his girlfriend Crystal and the black guy, and just them stealing something and running off. Yeah, I'm attracted to this life because I am not disciplined enough to create a standard or to know or to identify myself with anything better. You know?
Yeah, I mean, his character is very reactionary.
Mm-hmm. Right. I thought that was so interesting when she said that, and when I thought it was interesting too, talking about at the. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. The signal went out, and I didn't hear what you were saying. I started talking over you. Hello, 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 Janie. We might have lost Janie. We might have to restart and start a new meeting.
I'm having a hard time.
We heard you for a sec there.
Sorry, dropped out.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're fine. You're fine. Do you want me to restart anything? Can I do anything?
What was the last thing you said? I think you had a question, and we were saying that James was very reactionary, but you had a question.
Oh, yes. Just at the beginning, bringing in, ethnicities, and I'm talking about, we were just talking about with the Florida project, sort of the racial dynamics that they were playing with there, with the lead being in poverty but being a white girl, right, or a white woman. And what I thought was really cool was the opening of this with a black officer abusing this white boy, this pretty white boy, right? And it's not to water down, anything that's really happening in current times with cops killing unarmed black men, and it's not to align the abuse, at all. But right. I appreciate these elements because these are the elements that create a very important discussion on that this isn't black issues. This is poverty issues. This is system issues that are mowing down so many youth, and he puts himself in this position, whether it was the black cop at the beginning or whether it was the lieutenant, later on towards the end. He puts himself in these positions to where these people, the system, you are a stat. You're not a son. You're not someone with this opinion. He walks in and tells the lieutenant how this is going to go down. It's like the audacity, and that's where I kind of got what my wife was talking about with these kids being privileged like that. It's like, who do you think you are? Like, you're one of thousands of prisoners. Do your freaking job, or do what you're told.
Right, and the decisions that you've made have gotten you here. So now you're right. You have no choice because you've made these bad choices. Right. We have to take control of our lives. We can't just be victims all the time. And that's kind of, Jamesy Boy starts out as a victim, right?
Right.
In the end, he's not a victim anymore because he realizes we need to take control and create the reality that we want in our life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting because he is privileged because he's white. Mm-hmm. Not, we are, yes, financially, he probably is similar to a lot of people with different skin colors, but because he's white, that definitely probably made some things easier for him than if it were the same guy with darker skin. I think it's a great juxtaposition.
That's cool. Yeah. And I really, when you just talk about being institutionalized and not understanding what your worth is, or not knowing or having an arrow as to what that worth is, you can tell that he's smart. And again, this is blurring the lines in between sort of his experiences and mine. I felt like in these scenes where he is gravitating towards the wrong things, the wrong lifestyle, making the wrong decisions, hanging out with the bad people, hanging out with Crystal over hanging out with Sarah, right? You don't have it that bad. Your mom is telling you even when you're in jail that you got Christmas gifts. Like Ving Rhames doesn't have Christmas gifts. I
Right.
bet the Latino kid or one of the other guys in prison, they don't have Christmas gifts waiting for them. And
Right.
and you want to identify yourself so hard with, we listened to way too much 50 Cent. I know that was our problem back in the day. 50 Cent came and he thought he had all of us little suburban boys thinking we were gangsters, right?
Yeah,
But honestly, just thinking about with my son, and I'm wanting you to sort of even voice, your worries as a parent, where, when a young man is trying to find that identity, what is it? What's that compass? What's that thing that keeps them from not making those bad decisions, or the irreparable ones, at least, right?
Well, so here I have to take us to the pivotal scene in the movie, when his mom finds those little bottles of alcohol in his bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we shot that scene many times, with many different levels of emotion from either actor, right? So we did her single, we have a wide, and we have him. And what it came down to, and I think that the director did a really good job in the edit, he let James, he used his really high volume reaction in that scene, and he took Mary Louise Parker and used a softer version of that scene, because it kind of shows that she's a little bit more mature. Right. But at the end of the scene, what does she say to him? Fuck it, I don't care. Do whatever you fucking want. And as James, as a 14-year-old, who the previous scenes he's trapped because of his ankle bracelet, he's hanging out in his house, bored to death.
Right.
All he wanted her to say was, go, I don't care. Fuck you. You know, and that's all he needed. Had she said, no, I'm sitting here with you, we're in this together, 100%, but she right there, they have that fissure. And it's almost as if, as a parent, and I need to think about this, if I say, screw it, I don't care, well, then, that's when she gives him almost the ticket. And then that's when he meets Crystal. Right after that, I think, is the convenience store robbery scene, which is shot beautifully. I mean, like, thinking about Spencer and thinking about Trevor, the director, and how he chose to shoot these scenes. It's really basic shooting, wide, mediums, lots of nice push-ins for emotion. But I think back to being as a parent, she told him who cares?
Right. Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, when I saw that scene, and I love how well thought out that last part here, like learning how well thought out that was, because I think what that shows is that mom is not perfect either. Mom is going to get emotional too. And I promised myself I wasn't going to say it this episode. For whatever reason, I keep going back to emotional maturity. But here we are again. That's another tool that you need to learn. And I feel like as a parent, you have to bounce in between, showing them the ideals and the standard. And then you also have to live and show them reality too, and maybe in those times you do need to show the standard and be the standard. I don't necessarily have the answer, to that particular question, but I do believe that in that instance, his compassion that he needs to learn from his mother, maybe he can learn when he's watching that, or is that more likely just going to give him a license to go out and be whatever,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard call. I mean, it's how much to push and how much to set a balance. But I do think that James is in a position that's not so great. And it's not because of him necessarily. It's because of the environment that his mother is in. Yeah. Does she have a lot of emotional maturity? Does she have the ability to lead him and show him the right choices? She definitely tries, and she definitely has compassion for him. But I think that she has got a lot going on too. And that's where the financial struggle, all of that stuff, his economic situation really impacts where you are and how you feel about as a kid when you wake up in the morning and the start of your day. You know, I mean, I'm sure for James, it wasn't always a bright sunny day in his house, right? So of course he's going to have problems at school.
Right, right. And I always say, when it comes to changing the stars, you know, when it comes to getting out of poverty or being the first to get out of it, being that generation that wants to get out of the trap, right?
Yeah.
You know, I always say, my auntie, my dad, like that generation, they had to get a job to survive. You know, they didn't get to, oh, what do I want to do? What's my purpose, right? You know, like we're talking about that now as they're retiring, you know, and I'm so excited for them.
That's awesome.
But for me, I've been dreaming since dreaming, right? And with this, you know, responsibility, you are still around. You're a degree away around, I should say, you know, talk about myself. I'm like a degree around from very bad mistakes. There's people around that, there's things, opportunities around that can, that rabbit in the farm with the tar baby, where it's like you put one fist in it and, you know, you're fighting the whole thing off of you by the end of the day. And it's this whole paradigm of, you can't mess up. Definitely being young, being a young black male, but being in the youth, like in energy in general, it's like there are vampires out there. There's a system out there that needs stats. It needs energy. It needs young people. And if you don't have a chance already, the odds are already stacked against you, the repercussions are really harsh.
Well,
you just don't get it at that time.
Right. Well, and you think about the characters in this film. We've got Crystal. When he finally leaves Crystal, you see she's a broken little girl. She's not grown up either. And she keeps telling him, you're just a little boy. You're not grown up. But he knows enough that situation is not good for him. Then we also have Sarah, right? Sarah, the girl at the grocery store. She's a young girl. I mean, all of these people are, you know, their history makes who they are, right? Sarah is a good girl. She works hard. She's not, you know, but what is her future, right? What is her future? What is James's future? What is Crystal's future? Rock at least has some power and some control in his life, but none of those other three people have any power and control. They're children.
Exactly. And Rock takes advantage of it, of course, with these kids or these younger people. I was thinking, I hope Crystal is of age, right? You know, because of the situation. But regardless, she's trapped. You know, she's on her own side of things. But what I really love about Sarah's character, you know, when we're talking about raising our boys to be men, what I love about her, I was curious about who her mother was, because if her father was this alcoholic and she had the responsibility to take care of the store and everything in the meantime, and the best part of it is that she's able to tell this dude no. When he's asking to throw my life away, you're all I have. Like that, like you don't know how to process feelings yet. That's not true. If it is true, like, if that's really how you feel, that I'm all you have, this woman that you just met in this, you know, you went on these few dates and you have if you think that this is the case, then there's some stuff that you have to figure out before I even feel like I would do anything with you at this point.
Well,
right?
But that's James. He's only 14. When you're 14, you think, yay, come with me, we'll run away. You don't know. It's like, where are we going to get our food? Where are we going to sleep? Like, what, you know, but when you're 14, and yes, he really honestly feels like, Sarah is his only way out, and she's the voice of reason. You know, she's like, no, I'm not ruining my life for what? Where are we going to go? I mean, she doesn't say, where are we going to go? But you know, and as an adult, when you're watching that, you're like, this is only a 14. This is what I said to my husband. I was like, only a 14-year-old would go up to her and say, let's run away.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. It's nuts. Romanticism. And even when Rock got pissed off at him for going to rob that club owner, this isn't a movie. You know, like this isn't Romeo and Juliet. Let's go run off and let's shoot up the clubs and get some respect. And like, that's not how it works, man. You know, yeah, he's a cowboy at this time.
Well, and that's a moment in that scene. And I love one of the things that Trevor does when you watch this movie is he does a lot of like kind of over shoulders, or he connects to people, or like even when they you know, James is sitting in the car, but we can see the house from over shoulder from interior of the car. So he connects those elements. When Rock is really yelling at him, he does a really nice soft over shoulder right onto Spencer. And Spencer's eyes, his face, the emotion, it's like, that's when he's realizing, no, I'm not grown up and I don't have it all figured out. And just being a tough guy isn't the answer, you know?
Right. That is so cool, man. And that's a genuine, almost father moment that he's not even intentionally trying to be a father, right? But he just so doesn't have a clue, right? That he's like, this isn't it. Side note, I really appreciate listening to you talk about the visual language, you know, and talking about those things that Trevor went over, because it's so easy to conceptualize and feel it, but as a viewer, you don't understand how and why you're feeling what. And I love that you're talking about these things. And we can pause from the movie just for a second, because I want people to have a context of when she's talking about her speaking with the director. We can have you explain real quick your job. I know there's a lot of people that already know what a script supervisor is, but I would like for Jane, I want you to explain what that is, and also just kind of the cool insight that you feel like that you get being in those positions.
So being a script supervisor, I am the person who I keep track of the story. So when I first get a script, I basically find out how many days and what time is it in the script. Kind of just keeping the story, and I'll talk to the director about that. But then really my job is important. It's during production when we're shooting. I'm taking all the notes for the editors to look over. So I make sure the camera guys have the scene number on the slate, and I count how many takes we do and timing of the shot. But really, I get to sit next to the director and look at that monitor and hear him talking to the DP and why he's choosing to shoot this angle, or are we going to do this in a oneer? Like, that was really fun. Like Mary Louise Parker didn't really want to focus on continuity. That's also part of my job. So within the scene, I try and make sure that it looks real. There's nothing that's going to take you out of the scene because, oh, she didn't have her earring on, or stuff like that. But like Mary Louise Parker wanted to do, there's a bedroom scene, and we talked about, are we going to do it as a oneer? Now, a oneer means we're only doing one setup for that scene. We're just shooting that scene. So she can do, and he can do, any actor can do any continuity they want, because it won't matter. But does that tell the story enough? Do we need to go in and get singles? Will it hold the emotional capacity in just a wide? Is that oneer a wide? I mean, and all of the rules for film are there for a reason, but they're also there to be broken, right? So also as a script supervisor, I make sure eye lines are correct and screen direction is correct. But so just to show you, so Jamesy Boy is not a long movie, but these are all the script notes and everything that I have. This is my binder. It weighs a ton. And yeah, I mean, and I'm amazed sometimes when I look through my notes that they're actually neat, because, when you're out on location, you have to write clearly so the editor can read it. Because what's the point otherwise? Exactly. But it's just, and I also make sure that the actors are saying their lines, and that we're keeping to the story. I've had a director decide to just switch lines between two actors, which changed the whole dynamic of the conversation. And I'm sure the writer wasn't excited about that, but the script is really important to me, may not be as important, to the director as it is to the writer. But I try and make sure we get all the elements that's on the page. So I'll say to the director, do you want to get, like, there's a scene, the scene with Rock and James, they're in the club, like all those scenes. First of all, there's never a huge wide shot. That, you know, how do we express and give this feeling? You don't have to have a wide, you know, so we go in and do some smaller shots, but it's like, we also had, we have inserts. We call them inserts. It's like a close-up of the cigarette pack or a close-up of something. Right. And I think Trevor uses inserts well in this movie. You know, the audience needs to have clarity. So that's part of my job. So yes, I sit next to the director all day, and it's really fun to see how they work and to see how the actors take a scene. Like when I worked on Veep, I would read the script and it was funny. But when the actors start doing it and they add all their elements, physicality, voice, moving around, wardrobe, props, they all add so much to a scene. And so Veep was a lot funnier when we were filming it than it was sometimes reading on paper. But anyway, I hope that explains a little bit about what I do. So yeah, I'm always thinking about the camera. I also write down all the lenses. You know, are we on a zoom? Are we on a prime? And the other thing, just as a director or a script supervisor, do we always need to see the actor's lips moving? Because, you know, sometimes it might be an over shoulder shot, but I might want to show the other actors, like Rocco's scene when he's yelling at James and James is crying. Editorially, we could have chose to stay on Rock and show his anger, but what's really more important is the reaction. Right. So, you know, you have to think about that as a directorial choice, and you want to have all those options. So right. You want to shoot it as much as you can, or, you know, that's comfortable.
That's cool. That's great. I appreciate that description. I even learned just how deep it can go and just how much the script supervisor can have your back. You know, like I appreciated it so much, especially in post. You know, just from my experiences, because I'll look at, you know, the camera report with good ACs, and I can see the focal length and, you know, different things that might have happened on the take, but I'm not even talking about the stuff on the set with the eye line and making sure, right. You know, all that stuff is good. But then it's also in post. She saved my butt so many times from, you know, circle takes that something not being focused, you know, so one of the takes being out of focus. I'm like, I didn't even know you were paying attention to that, right? You know, or somebody not saying a line when we were doing the dirty close up. So then we're going to have to, all right, so then I'll have to switch and do the other one with an ADR. Like, it's those notes that were just so priceless. And I also want you to talk more about a set like Veep. You've got, again, like a very improvisational thing. I love that set, man. You know, Dale ADN, you know, Julia and the crew acting a fool. You know, I remember I was there the season that Hugh was there from House, and like, it was so cool, man. Like one of the best times I've had on set, because I didn't even realize who he was. So he would go on a cigarette break, and we kind of kept aligning each other a couple of times. So then by the end of the day, he's like, Trey, cigarette, come on, you know? And it's like, I didn't even know who he was. I had no clue who he was, but that was one of the coolest sets I had been on. But going back to your job, I wanted you to kind of delve in that relationship between the directors, the actors, the writer. Is the writer kind of chumming up on you to make sure you're representing for them? Is the director wanting to, all right, but it's there, but we're not going to do that. And then the actor is going up to you and say, but I feel they would, you know. So, and where are you in the middle of all of that, right?
Definitely, it's definitely, to be a script supervisor, you have to be able to manage yourself on set and read people. Like, some actors, you can't approach them. I mean, when I first start working with somebody, a director, I ask them, am I allowed to talk to the actors? Because sometimes it gets in the way. You have to know your place on the set. Like, I'm here just in case. I'm not running the set. I'm not the director. Some script supervisors get very upset And you just have to say what you need to say. Like, I don't think this is going to cut well, or, the line, blah, blah, blah. And say what you need to say. And it's important to remain calm at all times. Like, if an actor comes up to you, like, you have to just remain calm, because you're trying to give them some semblance of you can do this, it's going to be fine. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on a director and an actor. And I think for me, I also have to choose what elements are really important. Is it really important that the continuity was a little off, that the button was undone? Is anybody going to notice that? Right. So there are a lot of things that I have to weigh out. But I try to be as supportive to the director as possible and give them what they need, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's a struggle. Do I support the actor? Do I support the director? Mm-hmm. Really, I support the director. I am here for the actor, for lines and continuity, but it is about the director and what they want. And I have to make sure, I want to make sure we get the shots that we want and what lines were said. And mm-hmm. It's a lot to manage, but it's really fun.
Yeah. And if the director isn't the writer, do you meet the writer? Does the writer like seek you? Do they try to come to you like, please protect me, please?
I have had that a little on set, and I do the best I can. I have, like, on House of Cards, Kevin Spacey had this whole tirade of, he was angry in the scene, and he's you have to be really careful with Kevin and how you approach him, right? Just like some actors, and you have to read people. When can I approach? And I had the writer, Bo Williamson, who was the showrunner at the time, coming up to me and going, that line, he didn't say that line, and he didn't say this, and but Kevin never learns lines, first of all. Kevin Spacey never learns lines. He writes everything on little note cards. And he tries to, like, get the gist of the conversation almost by line, but it's so that he has his own self-motivation, right? Mm-hmm. So he's saying what he needs to say, not because he's memorized it. So I know that about Kevin. Mm-hmm. And so I had to go approach Kevin. And of course he snapped at me. He was like, who's telling you this? So I had to tell him. The writer's telling. He's an executive, also the showrunner. Right. So Kevin listened to me, but it is a little bit of a tiptoe dance, definitely.
Wow. Yeah, and then the whole deal with all these different flavors of films and actors, right? So you say, there's a little more improv, or a lot of improv with Veep. Kevin Spacey, he has his own way of doing things. Then there's other sets where I'm sure it's a lot more rigid. So are you kind of feeling that out, doing your research in advance? Are you learning that through each production?
Every production's totally different. It's really about my conversation and interview with the director. And really, I mean, the writer can be there saying a lot of stuff, but whose set is it? It's the director's set. Okay. Unless, and a lot of times, so now they have to make writers associate producers, or else they're not allowed because of the WGA. To change lines on set. So now they just make them producers. Well, now we can just rewrite all we want. But it's a dance, but generally I'm there for the director, and I might say, why don't we get it both ways? Like, if you don't care about that line, let's drop it for one take, and then let's use it for another take. That's a really easy way to make people more happy, and then they have that choice in edit.
That's cool. And I will say, just from personal experience, I really appreciate the glow, the energy that you have on set, man. You're always so positive, and even when you're in the trenches, I know there's times you're in the trenches, man, and I see it in the back of your eyes, but you have such a priority to be kind, and I it's so felt. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. I think it's really important, because our job, making movies, is really hard. I mean, it's really physically and emotionally taxing. So it's important for us to have fun. Like House of Cards, I didn't work on the set at the beginning when they first started in Baltimore, but it was not a fun set. You weren't allowed to laugh. You weren't allowed to talk. That's not who I am and what I think filmmaking is about.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, man. It was grueling day and night. House of Cards to Veep was day and night. I appreciate House of Cards because that was my training ground. That's always been my standard. I don't think it's ever been more, astute than it was on that set. So yeah, I'll thank it for that, because it's kept me on point with everything else.
Well, and that's the difference between also a comedy and a drama.
Right.
They were trying to laugh as much as they could, House of Cards, no laughter. Serious.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, we'll get back into the movie, but I also wanted to, because as you were talking, I was just thinking about you as a filmmaker being a scripty, for these juggernaut directors. I'm sure you have a great perspective to be able to make films yourself, and I know you're working on your 6-minute short. So I just wanted to, you can talk about it specifically, the story, but I also want to just hear about your experience as a filmmaker and how it's grown from your experience as a script supervisor.
Well, I started out, it says that we're unstable here. Okay. I started out as a production assistant, and it's like you see so many elements that go into making a good piece. Mm-hmm. As a filmmaker, I feel like every choice on camera, what you have on camera, what feeling, I feel like you need to think about what emotion, what you're trying to emote in a film. And yeah, I could jump into a director seat pretty easily, but like even watching Jamesy Boy, how you block scenes and where the camera is, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot. And you're under time element. Like Jamesy Boy, we didn't have, yes, it had the money to make the movie and to make it the way it was supposed to be made, but like our days were super long because we were young. Bobby Lamb, the DP, he didn't have massive experience. But everything on that movie was really thought out. And I think as a filmmaker, you really have to think of every, board your film so that you know exactly where the camera's going to be. For me, you've got to be prepared. That's what I want mostly. Like, think about your shots. I don't want to show up and we don't know what's going on. I mean, on Veep, we would just stop in the middle of the day and they would rewrite the scenes. Like, that's kind of crazy. While you're paying 60 people to stand around at God knows how much an hour. There's so many elements to making film, that you have
so
to
much
think
joking in those hours. So much funny jokes in those hours.
I know some of our conversations, exactly. And you're with people 24/7, it's like it can be an 18-hour day. It's definitely a 14-hour day at minimum.
Right.
But yeah, I also think, like on Veep, we did those rehearsals. Okay, in film, they hardly ever, especially TV, I don't think they ever do rehearsals. Mm-hmm. I think that is phenomenal for the actors.
Yeah.
Like, you think about all these elements, right? Your prop is a prop, but an actor is an actor. A story is a story. Like, how many angles can we show of the story, or how many items can we express, or that emotion that we're trying to make?
Yeah, that's been one of the biggest surprises as a filmmaker, as a young filmmaker, when I learned just how little rehearsal. Like, I could have swore that there was just a boot camp, like an invisible boot camp somewhere where the director and the actors practice over and over again. And it's like, where is that time? It's like my mentor told me, like, well, where does that happen? Who pays for that?
Time is money. That's the whole thing.
Right, exactly. So it just makes me appreciate the craft and the greats that are able to accomplish it on such a high level like that, right? So that's cool, man. And I want to hear about the experience as far as all the friends in Maryland that are indie filmmakers. I feel like it would be encouraging to hear about the beginnings of this, how it was produced, because I saw there was like a couple of guys from Annapolis that got the project going, and they started working with Maryland Film Office. I wouldn't even have that in my head if I wanted to make a movie to last unfortunately, the last thing I probably would have thought of is to call the Maryland Film Office for it. So I was just wondering how much you might have known about that process.
So here's the deal. So Trevor did have an in. Okay, so Trevor's a young guy. He had not directed before. He met up with this other guy. I forget the guy's name. You can look at the cover of the script. Shaggett. Yeah, Lane Shadgett wrote this script with Trevor. So he wrote it, and this is a great way to start directing, is to write your own stuff. So he wrote it with this other guy, but it's based on a true story. Right. So James Burns is a real person. So
and I'm sorry, was this in Maryland? Is the character, did he live in Maryland? The real life guy?
No, he was from Chicago, but let me tell you, here's the story. Okay, so Trevor White's mother is a producer. She has her own company with Patty, this other woman. So she's a producer. She worked on 60 Minutes. She's done a lot of stuff. And during one of the 60-minute segments that they did was about this woman who basically her father prostituted her in Chicago, went to this, it's kind of like a retreat, Outward Bound. Instead of sending your kid to rehab, they send them to go live in the woods with a group of people, and that's therapy. So Patty White, Trevor's mother, did a story on James's mother, who went to Outward Bound, got her life together. Patty and James's mom became friends. This is about her son. So now, Patty, right? So it's kind of confusing. Okay. So Patty became close to this woman that she did the story on, and this woman has a son, and his name is James Burns, and he had these struggles. And so Trevor writes the story about James, who made it out of the system, right? This is the story about a juvenile who kind of comes into his own and realizes, I can make my life different. Mm-hmm. So basically, it's kind of funny because James's mom, she got out of it and got herself together, but her son couldn't. So then now here's the story. So Trevor had a connection to the story. He had connection to Maryland. His mom already had connection to the film office. So as we know, connections, it's I wrote a great script, but nobody's going to read it. Well, you have to kind of utilize the people in your life and take advantage. And that's exactly what Trevor did. And James too. Right. So now James is making movies and doing all sorts of stuff on his own, but it's all does that make sense?
Yeah, I saw that too. And I was just speaking with Danny, the director's assistant that I met on Loving. And we were just saying how, I'm a dad a lot these days, and I got spit up on my chest and I'm not really feeling like a filmmaker, right? And she moved out to, Colorado after producing and, working on the Florida project, living in LA, living in Austin, and just to kind of center herself. And it's the same element of not very much feeling like a filmmaker if you allow yourself to be that way. But she was just explaining how when she's in these intimate situations, just talking with Sean Baker and Jeff Nichols, and a lot of the discussion is about life management, and Jeff and Sean, they are them on the set is a very small percentage of who they are. Yeah. So they're it's these, you think that it's these uber outliers that are just addicted to their craft that you got to keep up with. You can kind of get put in that place sometimes, when you're young and you're trying to put yourself out there as a filmmaker, but you have to value also this well-roundedness in your life and understand that that's where the good stories come from, and that's where the contacts come from. It may not necessarily be you taking random trips out to LA to meet a producer. Sometimes it's going to pick your kid up from karate class. Sometimes it's the doctor when you go to the dentist, right? That you're getting that story from, and also it's just, to me, it's a genuine life, where those connections come from, for better or worse. You can say that people are privileged or they're lucky because they know this person or that person, but I'm a firm believer in your path kind of lights up as you are allowing the opportunities to bestow themselves, right? So
Well, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I also, it's like you have to remember. It's like I've worked with, one day I'm working with a director. He's a director of a movie. He's living on top of life. He's living at the Hilton and all this stuff for the time we're shooting the movie, and everybody's kissing his ass. Oh, you're the director. Blah, blah. Okay, now we're in edit. Okay, so you don't have so you don't have all these people going, you're great, what do you want to do, okay? So I mean, I've seen this happen to several directors, right?
Wow.
Now you're in edit, you don't have all these people patting you on the back. You need to make some real decisions about what you want to do. So I mean, it's important, I think, to keep your pride and your arrogance. I think it's important to be humble. I don't care who you are, and I've worked with a lot of famous people. I think being kind for me is really important. And the other thing is, you could be working on a movie set, and that PA, like you, that I was working with, could be directing another movie in 2 weeks. So always be nice to everybody on set. You never know how they're going to end up. And I think it's important that our regular life is what's feeding our soul. Not just when we're doing great things or when everybody's seeing that we're doing great things. It's important to stay level and balanced and connected to humanity instead of above them or below.
That's so beautiful. I always say, not to be a cornball, but like Santa Claus says, man, be good for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Like just we see it on set. You're talking to somebody and they may not be giving you a reciprocal energy, and then they find out who you are, and then it's what? Yeah, right away. Or and it's like, really, like, man, that's not cool. It's like, where's that going to get you at the end of the day? And that's really important to hear as a filmmaker to, when you feel like you're on the outside looking in. It's this finite space. We talk about wanting to be in Hollywood, and Hollywood is not, this address to go to. It's like this moment when all the cameras are up and the lights are up and all these professionals that have focused on this thing, they're there for that moment. And then soon as we moving on, it's all gone. It's and it's these moments that are created by a genuine lifestyle and really having a story that needs to get put out there. There's no shortcuts to making good film. There's no shortcuts to meeting the people and getting the money and having the gusto and the prowess to be able to execute it. There's just no other way. We just chose, if you're choosing to be a filmmaker, it's like with great power comes great responsibility, right, Uncle Ben?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's passion. I mean, you have to have passion, and the important thing, I think, no matter what the hell you do, is you have to have passion for yourself and passion for your life. And that's Jamesy Boy is like, I mean, the last thing about this movie is really, like I said at the beginning, it's not what I've done. I am not who I am not defined by everything I've done. And that's what we're talking about too. Just because you're a great director and you've done these movies, eventually that's going to pass. And you have to be happy and passionate about your own life no matter what,
Right.
And make your own definitions for yourself.
Yeah. And that should be the fun part, not the overbearing pressure part. I worry, I ask myself, if I'd have ran into a rock, instead of running to, no pun intended, or pun was intended. That was funny.
Okay.
That was so intended. If I'd have ran into a rock in my life that didn't care or was abusive or looking for some young kid to suck the energy out of, and that would have been it. The wrong place, wrong time. When his mother says, you haven't ended up like anything yet. He was like, oh, I'll end up like, you always said not to end up like your cousin or something like that, who I'm assuming was bad. And she's like, you haven't ended up like anything yet. Stop identifying yourself with horrible stuff. You can identify yourself with greatness. You're a king, man. You can do whatever you want, but when you're in those situations, you don't see it.
No,
at that time,
it's hard. No, it is. I mean, life is hard. That's the thing. It is hard. You have to see above and beyond the bigger picture.
Right. And run to the light. Run to the light. Don't you know what I mean? Don't go, like, there's plenty of elements around that'll pull you to the dark. So you have to implement things. I speak about this where as I get older, it's like, why listen to music that's bad vibratorial? Why cuss? Why watch depressing stuff? Why be around this energies when I know that on those 12-hour days, 18-hour work days, I need to have a surplus of energy. I need to be, I know that when I'm running low or when I want to achieve things on a high level, I need to have this surplus of positive energy, and I don't have time to go running with these random people that bumped into me at a convenience store. I don't have time to, as he did when he started to fall in love with Sarah. He started to kind of see that value in himself, and it was reason enough to tell Crystal out, tell her off and make, you're just this thing. F you, right? And then unfortunately with Crystal, who does actually seem like she's a smart woman, she doesn't know what to do with it. And even in those moments where she catches herself having feelings for Jamesy, she can't do the actions. She can't say the words to do better. She's never been, that's never been put into her program,
No, I mean, it is really sad about Crystal because she just doesn't have a way out. I mean, it's like so sad in that scene when he leaves her. And the thing about Jamsey Boy is that, we talk about, like, so where does James really start flourishing and growing and finding his voice? In jail.
Right. Isn't that something?
Okay. But that's the dichotomy of this movie, that he actually blossoms by seeing Conrad and by seeing that other guy's struggle, like that suicide scene. And that really happened. Poor James really had to experience that. And
really,
it took us so many days to shoot that scene. I, as a script supervisor, so when we shoot a scene, we do scene 1, take 1, right? And then let's say we do another angle of that scene. I'll say on the slate, it's scene 1, apple, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, to give you an idea of that suicide scene, that took us 3 days. I went through the alphabet 1.5 times. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we had already gone through A through Z. So then we're on 1 apple. Then we're on 1 apple baker. Okay, that's how many times we move the camera and of course we had to like do it section by section by section. Mm-hmm. And I love the shot. I have to say, the shot from the hanging body of James Woods, like, that's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice. It's like,
it's a reflective
body, right? And it's a low angle, so you look up and you're looking, it's James is looking down, the warden.
Right.
James
Oh
Woods,
my gosh.
Warden. So, but I feel like, James flourishes in jail because it's still, and he sees Conrad has so much peace in him in a way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Huh.
The irony of being in jail and finding peace and finding your voice,
How about it? Yeah, man. And I love, Ving Rhames' role. It's Conrad, right? That's the name.
Conrad.
I love his role, and I love how even when Jamesy starts testing him and starts acting out with the Latino character, and Ving Rhames, Conrad sees him about to throw it all away, and he's like, "Look, I'll kill you right where you stand. Don't tell me what I should be doing in my life." Again, hearkening unto that privilege. If I had a chance, I would take it. I don't. Right. You do. Stop playing.
Like, this isn't about like
it's reactionary, and think about where you want to go in your life. Stop protecting some other guy that you don't even know in the jail. It's like, what are you doing?
you think you're so cool. He's like, you're stoic. You John Wayne of the game. You the man. No, it's nothing cool about this, man. You are wrecking your life. What's cool is not acting out, is holding your own and doing and not being afloat in your life and just kind of letting all these crazy things react to whatever and wherever. What's being a man, what's cool, what is getting the hell out of jail. That's, but I love that scene because he just straightened him up real quick. That's all he had to do one time,
Yeah. I mean, and you're right. Like, what is the definition of being a man? Right. And this is something that James struggles with from the beginning. And that's something that Crystal says to him. Oh, you think you're such a man. You're so grown up. And, but he becomes a man by what? Keeping his job, paying his bills, being a good person, trying to be positive, not stealing, not trying to win something with no work, not, not being cool. Like, what is that?
Right.
Kind is better than cool.
Right. And I remember when he was talking to Crystal because, he's riding around like 80 miles an hour in the Cadillac with all the hot stuff. Oh, my Lord. And she goes, or he tells her, I'd rather die young than live like a coward, or somewhere around that. What rap song did you get that from? That is not. There's nothing true about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. In the right situation, if I'm reading, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Like again, we're talking about very different situations when we're bringing those quotes up.
Yeah,
dude, you can't even get into school. It's like what are you talking about? Like it's like with you're talking about death being a choice. If the option is to die, then it's a situation that's positive for me. There is nothing like fatal about going to school.
I know.
Like there's nothing fatal about having self-worth, about not doing the thing, not punching, not grabbing the gun, not hanging out with Rock and Crystal. It's just imagination land, but again, because there's no compass. And unfortunately, this is the appropriate time to bring up toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're not dealing with what it is, with whatever society or whatever surrounding you is telling you what a man is supposed to be. A man is supposed to be angry and stoic and supposed to lash out, and he's not supposed to write poetry, right? And he's supposed to be in jail. Like, I remember thinking that, like, that's a prerequisite. Like, everybody goes to jail every now and then, right? Like, it's a part of being a man. Unfortunately, what does it say? A hard butt makes for or a hard head makes for a soft ass, right?
Yeah.
You got to learn your lesson by watching somebody commit suicide, and seeing yourself in that person and holding that guilt. You need to get choked out by this huge man in a prison. You have to you have to put yourself in these horrible situations before you ever really learn. And that's what this story is about, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes, when you're living in a really low socioeconomic area, it's like, why not die? Like, why, I mean, there's another movie I worked on, Charm City Kings. I don't know if it's completely out yet, but it's also about a young person who grows, his character changes. But, I love this because really, like you're saying, what is the definition of a man and what does that mean? And James clearly, changes his idea of who that man is. And his examples, who does he really listen to? A guy who killed somebody 5 times, who's like got no door open to his life. And it made James realize the value of his life and the choices that he makes. And he's not a victim. He can change his life. And like the ending, one of the, and of course, like as we're talking about editorially, we're slowly working towards this hearing, right? We're going back and forth between time,
Right.
slowly working towards this hearing that he's got, and then and Conrad seeing him just screw it up. Because part of it is James is probably too scared. He'd rather just do what he always does, right? It's safer that way, and you feel manly when you're angry.
All of us, if it's safer to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. But when he goes to speak to that parole board, I mean, that I remember filming that scene. Trevor and I were like, come on, Spencer, you can do it, because it's a long monologue, first of all, right? It's a long monologue. How can we visually, as a director, how can we, film this so it's interesting instead of just he does do a wide shot with a slowly coming in, but he does other angles. He doesn't do, I don't think, the room wide. He shows them, then, back and forth, the board and then him. But really most of it, that whole monologue is right to camera. I mean, it's a little bit off camera, but it's to camera. And for Spencer, he had to get that right. And because that is finally when James, there are little snippets of when James is growing, but he really, now he's going to make the right decisions for his life. And he doesn't care if the parole board lets him out or not, because either way, he's going to win. That's a really profound thing. And it's profound about James Burns, who's a real person. I mean, we talk about the story. It's a feature, but it's a real person who experienced this. So that adds to this movie in a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, man. There's so many Jamesy boys out there, and I don't know if I would have sat to watch this movie when I needed to hear it. Or when I needed to watch it. But I'm glad that it's out there for others to be able to have that opportunity. And this has just been so amazing. We've been able to talk about Jamesy Boy, but we've also gone through Parenthood and filmmaking, script supervising. What a wealth of knowledge Jane has. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I want us to close out. We can kind of start thinking about what we think, the overall theme is without being too redundant. I know we've kind of already touched on it. I guess what I'll go back to when I think about the whole theme is I love how it wasn't all clean cut, right? He did the speech to the probation officers and then everything was great, right? He still ended up saying no to the drug dealer, but then going to get the drugs, but then going to see Sarah, and then he finally made the right choice. And that's really what it is. It's a gradual thing. I think that it's important to get, again, that romanticism, though, the dramatic elements out that aren't real, so that you understand that you don't have to make this big overarching change. That's not how life is. You can make small decisions every day to be a better person, and I love how they did that. But I want to go back to that scene and what he said, because again, this is, for me, when I think about me and my child, it's kind of the chord that strikes my nerve is when he's saying that he says it better than anybody else can say his problem. He isn't wrong for making bad choices. It's because of how he views himself. We've said this over and over again in different scenes and stuff like that. But I think the fact that he knows it, the fact that he's smart enough to articulate it, we just sat here and watched you for 2 hours make the worst decisions of all time. But I feel like he knew it even before that moment. You let me know what you feel. But I feel, to me, it's like when he's saying that I'm not, or you're not going to give me a chance, or my mom, hates me right now, or, Sarah's looking bad at me right now because it's not because of the bad decisions I'm making. It's because I don't see myself in the beautiful light that they see me in. But it's like, why don't you do better? And I love that he said that, because it's just sparked this in my head, and I don't have an answer to it, but I feel like that was really like one of my favorite moments, you know, and this something that I took with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think like cinematically watching that process, you know, we start out with the scene with the board, the school board, and he probably doesn't believe in himself there, but his mother does, right? Then we go through these series of shots of him just hanging out his house, kind of trapped. And then we also have a scene of he and his mom kind of intimately in his bedroom. All of those scenes then are bookended by the bedroom scenes with Crystal. Very different colors, very different dialogue. He's got a very different attitude there. Then we have the scenes of him changing in jail where he starts writing. I mean, they kind of like mirror. So now we have got a passage of time, and they're beautiful shots, right? Beautiful through the jail cells and stuff.
They're a lot.
And then what do we end on?
Lighting.
The lighting and stuff was a lot brighter, and with Sarah, like the images would be a lot brighter and stuff.
It's different, and also the shots of he and Sarah just having orange juice. So we have that also when he
and him playing basketball.
Then we have that at the end of the movie. There's something visually and cinematically that Trevor has bookended these, and it shows James's slow progression as he's changing. You know, I think that, you know, and then we end, right, we've got the hearing scene with him there where he does believe in himself, and he's basically saying the same thing his mother said. Just because he did this, and this doesn't mean he's a bad kid.
Right. Yeah, she said it. Yeah, at the beginning. See, that's awesome, man. I love when it comes to full circle like that. It's a great way to wrap the show. Thank you again, Jane, for coming or being on the Zoom with me. So much education, and it was just great just to catch up, man. You know, again, I appreciate your energy. Well, I'll go ahead and cut this off. We don't just have to like end the meeting. I'll cut this off. But again, guys, thank you so much. This was Jamesy Boy's breakdown with Jane Burka, the new Filmosophy with Trey Hill, and we're out. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye, thanks.
Great. Find all our content on thenewfilmosophy.com.